Hello and welcome to episode 280 of Sutton and Back Family Style. I'm Jason.
I'm Bill. And let's start today with Mr. Tatis.
80 games.
Okay, are you buying the ringworm story or not?
I'd love to say I was, but I feel like we've had this narrative a few times, so no, not even a little bit. Are
Well, I
you?
don't know how a player of his stature with his money gets ringworm, first of all.
No.
So I don't understand that. So I'm not buying it. And, I think it is a maturity issue. I think that, catching some shortcuts. I mean, somebody said what happened in a motorcycle wreck, and his response was, which one? That scares me. That
Oh,
scares me a lot.
yeah.
And the fact that nobody on the team jumped up and said, we're really going to miss him. We feel bad for him. We want to welcome him back. We want to help him. Nobody said anything like that. Most people said he needed to grow up. And, Manny Machado said, well, we've done this well without him, and we'll continue to fight and do our best. And, he's not getting any love.
No, that speaks
So
volumes. Yeah,
it speaks volumes to me.
when your own teammates. And again, I know the testing process has not been 100% probably fair or perfect by any stretch, but his story just, it didn't really vibe with me either. I just.
Well, since he signed the contract, he's missed 46% of their games.
Yep. It's pretty great. Yeah. And we've seen that story before too. Like, incredibly young, talented player is destroying the league. Then he gets that giant paycheck and kind of checks out.
Yeah.
And again, hopefully, you always hope that, that situation kicks in where this is the wake up call somebody needs, like a Chris Carter in the NFL, just trying to think of random people. But it does happen from time to time.
It does. And 80 games is a big hit.
Yeah.
He's got to hope they go in and have a lot of playoff run. Otherwise, he'll miss a significant portion of next year.
It's very true. Yeah.
So, I don't know. Just, you 14 years, $340 million. That's a hell of a contract. You got to be mature. You got to be able to handle the money and the fame and the pressure that goes with it.
Yeah. And the ringworm, if you get it, handle it in a better way, if that really was the story.
If that really was the story. And I don't know why a testosterone derivative would have been the cure for ringworm. I'm sorry, I don't get that.
No, I did not hear a lot of doctors chiming in saying, yes, he's correct. That's what happened. Ringworm. Well, you want to stick with your baseball story? You had some Little League World Series that I assume wasn't just the clip everybody saw on the internet that made everybody happy.
Yeah, that was a nice gesture, but it's 22 million views. That's a lot of views.
It is, yeah.
But it's sportsmanship, and you get a lot of that in Little League. But I'll tell you what, the game I'm looking forward to is the Thursday night game between Texas and Pennsylvania, because I saw three teams that I thought were better than everybody else. Texas, there were a couple teams from Texas, but this team from Texas is Perlmer, so it's near Houston. And the coach has the dreads, and he's been to the World Series a couple times. He's coached for a long time, but he's got a dynasty going.
Yeah, he does.
That team looked really good to me. Pennsylvania looked really good to me because they were hitting some bombs. And then Hawaii. Those three teams looked a lot better to me than everybody else. And they also had, say what you will about the difference between 11 and 12-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
But they had some huge kids that were just pounding the ball. It makes a difference.
Oh, it totally does.
So those three, and then on the women's softball Little League World Series, I'm picking Texas.
Texas having a big baseball
They
year.
just have too many hitters. And I think they're playing the Philippines, and the size difference in that game is incredible if that's who they're playing.
Yeah, it really is. It looks like junior high kids are coming to play the grade schoolers. Which
I tell you, it looks like high schoolers playing preschoolers.
okay,
That's how
yeah,
the size difference is in that one.
Yeah, it's pretty
So
crazy.
we'll see. I mean, it was a close game today, and then all of a sudden Texas won like 7-1. They had 10 hits. I think the other team had 3. And Texas bunched them all together and just started really pounding the ball. But they look good. They look really good to me. And the Philippines won 1-0. I mean, the girls are really small, really slight. They're fast. They play a really nice game. But, you put a couple of these other girls together, I don't know. So I got to go Texas there. And then the other one, to me, is wide open between one of those 3 teams. But I'm looking forward to watching it. It'll be fun.
Yeah. Do you want to start our predictions, or do you want to hit some preseason NFL thoughts first?
Yeah. If I'm picking right now,
Sure.
I'm going to pick Buffalo and the Rams.
Yeah, the scary thing with the Rams is Matthew Stafford's potential shoulder thing, but it seems like it may be a play-through kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think it's a very solid pick. It's hard to argue with that one.
Yeah, I mean, that's who I would pick. And I just think that the AFC is really, really good.
It's loaded.
Cincinnati's not going to sneak up on anybody this year, so that's going to be different. I like Kansas City. I like Kansas City every year. I think that, they picked up enough talent to me to offset Tyreek Hill.
And maybe the change in offense is exactly what they need, too. We'll talk about that more when we do our AFC West predictions later in the show, but yeah.
But I'm going to go Buffalo and the Rams. How about you?
Well, despite what we just said, and I agreed with you, I got a lot of faith in Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase. I think Burrow, he's the first guy in a long time that has that swagger, that Brady-ness.
Jim McManus.
The Jim McManus, yeah. I think the AFC West is going to beat up on themselves. I think, sadly, we'll get more into our preview later when we do AFC North, but I think the Bengals might just roll in that division. And then when I look at the NFC, I'm tempted, bizarrely, and this isn't just homerism now that I live down here, I think the Saints are going to be really, really good.
Okay.
And I think it's going to be somebody new, and I think it's going to be the Saints.
Okay, so you're going Saints and Bengals.
Saints and Bengals.
And I'm going Rams and Bills.
Yeah, you have a much more probable chance of both those hitting. But yeah, that's my right now take. So then as we're here, do you want to start with our AFC West?
Yeah, let's start the AFC West.
All right. Do you want to start
go
4-1 or you want to start 1-4?
Let's go 4-1.
Okay. I think the Denver Broncos.
I'm going Denver.
I am too. Yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, I don't have a lot of Russell Wilson faith. And I just like the other. I mean, part of it is I really like the other 3 teams better.
And that's exactly what it is. I mean, do I think all 4 teams could have a winning record? Yeah,
yes.
I think they could.
Oh, without a doubt.
I think that's possible. But I just don't see enough of Russell Wilson and Denver making enough of a splash in that division. I mean, if they go, wild success would be 3-3 against the other teams. That'd be wild success.
Wild success, yeah.
And I don't see that happening.
No.
I see more like 2-4 or 1-5.
And part of that is the Russell Wilson we've watched for the last 2 years was not one of the best 10 quarterbacks in football.
No.
And I know they got a lot for him, and he's obviously an upgrade over Drew Lock and Brock Osweiler and the poo-poo platter they've had at quarterback in Denver over the last decade. But I don't think it's enough to overcome those other teams.
No, I don't either. Well, then I'm going to go with the Raiders as my 3rd team.
I actually have the Raiders as my 2nd team. I have the Chargers as my 3rd team.
And I have the Chargers as my 2nd team. And we both have the Chiefs as our 1st team.
Yeah. And I guess we can talk about all 3, because we like all 3 teams. All 3 of these teams could easily be playoff teams.
Yeah, I think I like the Chargers as my number 2, really contending, because I think they made a lot of good moves. They picked up a lot of good players on offense and defense.
Justin Herbert.
Year better than they were, last year. I like Herbert a lot.
Oh, yeah.
If he stays healthy, I mean, they could, I definitely see them as a challenger.
I think the problem with them...
I like where the Chiefs are.
Yeah, I just feel like the Chargers have been on the cusp so many times, going back to the Phillip Rivers time, and they always disappoint. And I know that's not something you can hold against a team because it's a new team every year. But that always sticks in my mind with them for some reason, and I haven't been able to let that go. And then the other thing is, I really like the Raiders this year. I look at what that team went through last year with the John Gruden situation, with the ownership situation, and they still won 8 games. And they went out and they added Khalil Mack on defense to go across the street for, go out with the other all-star edge rusher. You added Devontae Adams to go with Derek Carr, longtime friends, played together at Fresno State. And, a Josh McDaniels coach from the New England system, as someone that owns a fantasy running back from the Los Angeles or the Las Vegas Raiders, I'm not happy about Josh McDaniels being there because he doesn't like us as fantasy players. But I think that's a team that's really well set to go. And I think Derek Carr is one of those guys that is probably, I would almost say he was very underrated over the course of his career.
Well, I think the difference between first and third might be 2 games, might be 2 wins.
It might be, a sprained ankle from one of the quarters, something tiny,
Yeah.
But we both picked Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs to once again reign in that division.
I just have faith in Andy Reid's system. I like the additions that they made more than I like the loss of Tyreek Hill.
Yeah. I wanted Juju in fantasy really bad because I feel like in a PPR league, Juju's going to rack up a ton of 8-yard catches.
Yeah.
Running underneath.
He averaged last night. I think he averaged 9 yards a catch and a touchdown yesterday.
Yeah, because I feel like, you'll have Valdez-Scandling and some of the other speedsters they have on the outside. You'll have, Kelsey work in the middle and the deep middle, and then Juju can work underneath where he's great at what he does. And then, I think we've mentioned it before, Patrick Mahomes is a generational talent. And
yes, he is.
I see so much in him, and I can't ever count. He's become the I can't count him out guy. Like, I don't...
No, and he makes everybody better. He is that kind of player.
Yeah, and that's to take nothing away from as good as Tyreek Hill has been. But I think they're going to be okay. I think they'll scheme away, they'll work with what they have. And again, it could be they have more technically than they had last year. They don't have the top tier Tyreek Hill guy. But I think their 2 through 5 are better than their 2 through 5 last year. And I think that's going to be a big difference.
I agree. Kelsey's a year older. And I don't know if he could have a year like he had last year, but I think he's still very, very serviceable.
Oh, incredibly so. Yeah, he's fantastic. And again, Andy Reid's system, Patrick Mahomes, that's all you really need to say.
Yeah, and they're going to need that offense because they're going to have to outscore people in that division.
Yes, they are.
I mean, I can see a lot of games in the 30s when the teams play each other.
Yeah, and like we said, all 4 of these teams could have a winning record. And, I outside of Denver, and even then I wouldn't be, shocked. I wouldn't be surprised if any of the teams won the division.
No, I wouldn't either.
And I wouldn't be surprised if they went one gets in as a division winner and the other 2 get in as wild cards, especially with the extra wild card we have now.
I could see, the Chiefs winning 13 games, the Chargers winning 12, and the Raiders winning 11. I mean, that's how close it is. I think it's the best division of football by far, and even further, it'll be the most entertaining division of football.
Agreed. That's the one I'm really paying attention to. I can't wait to watch. Whereas, as we move to the NFC West, that seems a bit more clear cut.
Okay, I'll let you be first this time.
Seattle clearly coming in 4th because Seattle wants to pick high. I think is pretty clear.
Yeah, Seattle's definitely going to be the last place team.
They're happy going into the season.
I watched Geno Smith last night.
Yeah.
I watched
Drew Lock.
Yeah, he actually looked better than Geno Smith to me.
Yeah.
But there's just not a lot of talent there.
No. And they have the extra first-round pick from the Russell Wilson trade. the draft experts, for whatever it's worth, because they're always right and they're always wrong, think there's 5 quarterbacks in this year's draft staff that'll be better than any of the guys from last year. And, if you're going into the season with Drew Lock and Geno Smith and you're comfortable with that, you've pretty much sent a message to the rest of the league you're not looking to win. NFC West, third, I got Arizona. They're just...
I do too. In fact, I agree with your 3 and your 4. I'm right with you. I just don't think, I like Kyler Murray. I just can't go yard on him.
No. Well, D-Hop is going to miss the first 6 to 8 games. Is it 6 games or 8 games? I think 6. I think he got knocked down to 6. And he's a crucial part of what they do. They've fallen apart every single season, despite coming out hot. And then you look at what that organization has done, leaking out that Kyler was immature, putting that clause in the contract. There's, organizational things that I don't like going on in Arizona right now.
And Hollywood Brown is not going to be as good there as he was in Baltimore.
No,
because he is going to be prone to making Antonio Brown mistakes.
Sadly, yes. Well, as you brought him up, just like Beetlejuice or Candyman, we have to mention the new Antonio Brown story this week. Did you read it?
No, I've got an Antonio Brown. It was a meme though.
Do you know? Well, for people,
Antonio Brown and Chick-fil-A have in common.
Oh, no, this is a better story. This is his quote of the week. What is Antonio Brown's biggest regret, would you say, Dad?
His biggest regret?
Yeah.
I didn't think he had any, but go ahead.
His biggest regret is not throwing, a bicycle at a man, not any of the other charges he had off the field, not leaving Pittsburgh, not quitting on anybody. His biggest regret is not ever to watch Antonio Brown live. Is that he was never able to do that and experience how great that would be. That was his quote this week.
There you go. It says it all.
It says it all. That's the Antonio Brown quote of the week. And he also told Jerry Jones, reach out, I'm available. So he's all over the place.
But I like what do Antonio Brown and Chick-fil-A have in common? Neither of them work on Sunday.
Yeah.
I like that one.
I think, I think we're probably going to have the same 2 and 1 too. Because I have the 49ers at 2, who I really like a lot. I'm very excited about.
And the 49ers, I think they could actually surprise.
Oh yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if they won the division, just didn't go as far as the Rams in the playoffs.
No. Trey Lance looks exciting, but he still is, very inexperienced. Hasn't played much. And again, when you talk about the Rams, who we've talked about probably ad nauseum over the last season and a half because they've been so good in winning the Super Bowl, but you just look at the additions they made on offense. It's always good to inject somebody new. And you added Allen Robinson, who is still young and an absolute stud at wide receiver and has looked fantastic in practice. Yep. And he's been able to step right into that OBJ situation. And again, I think, you go back to Jordan and the Bulls and Phil Jackson and, crossing over with Pat Riley. Like they always say that, the key to a repeat, the key to a successful season is keeping the core intact, but adding a little bit of new blood every year to sort of spark and, bring that fire. And I think Allen Robinson's been, sort of maligned as a Bears receiver for the last 5 years with different quarterbacks all the time and bad coaching. And he's a great wide receiver, and they picked him up for nothing. I think he's going to be a nice spark for that team.
I think he's going to have a great year. And I think he'll be able to do more things. OBJ was very limited last year in what he could do.
Yeah.
And then he got hurt. But, he was very limited because he was coming off an injury. And, I love OBJ. He'll end up somewhere. Maybe he ends up in New Orleans.
New Orleans, who knows? Dallas, Green Bay. There's spots all over the place that need him. I heard he's interested in going to Buffalo to go with your Super Bowl pick. So,
yeah. So we'll see what happens. But, yeah, I definitely think the Rams are the best team, followed closely by the 49ers. And while we're on the 49ers, let's talk Jimmy G.
Yeah. Well,
I think if Deshaun Watson's out for a year, I think maybe you spend the draft pick and you take Jimmy G.
I think you do too. And I've noticed, obviously, anybody that watched or saw highlights, the crowd was not the kind of crowd the NFL wants to have. And Deshaun Watson's going to get that every game, home and away, I think.
Yeah.
And you add that up with what the judge has already said, what the NFL has already said, and apparently the NFLPA isn't being very, adamant about fighting for this guy. And I just think if you're the NFL, like, if I'm the NFLPA and the other NFL players, like, I don't want him hanging over our season.
No.
Like,
Definitely not.
It's hard to side with Roger Goodell, especially after I've badmouthed him pretty much every time I've gotten on a podcast. But I want him to win this time.
Yeah, I think, it's kind of butchered a little bit because, you set up this system and all of a sudden you don't like what it is, so you're going to, you reserve the right to change the system. So that doesn't come across real well.
No.
But I agree that 6 games was way, way, way too lenient. I mean, that's almost like a Ray Rice miss on the punishment.
Yeah, I think this has to be, an indefinite, a year with an indefinite sort of, we'll come visit you after some counseling and some other things and we'll see where you're at. Because I don't think the NFL, I think outside of Cleveland, I don't think a single owner is going to want this guy in the league, and not any other reason than it just makes everybody look bad. And you don't want talking heads talking about him. You won't want him brought up. You don't want to have the whole season be like, well, after 10 games he comes back. What if Cleveland is this? And then what is the reception going to be? Like, I think you just need him gone.
And the other thing, in staying on this topic, it's never Jimmy Haslam. It's Jimmy and Dee Haslam.
Yeah.
And that nauseates me. That she is front and center on this guy.
Yeah.
It nauseates me. I just don't see it. And I just think that she either has no spine or is just, an appendage, but she's not a person.
No. It's really gross.
Yeah.
Well, on to better topics. Do we want to do our Steeler moment now, or do we want to do food and entertainment, and then we'll end with the Steeler moment? That way, anyone that doesn't want to hear us rave about the Steelers and the young players that we'll never see the field that we like don't have to listen to that if they don't want to.
But they need to, so let's do it now.
All right, let's do it now. Yeah. First preseason game, all 3 quarterbacks scored touchdown drives.
And it's obvious that the crowd wants Kenny Pickett.
The crowd love Kenny Pickett.
And I think it was really cool that all the Pitt football players were there in their Pitt gear to show up. I thought that was cool.
That was very cool. I think he was a top-selling jersey out of the draft. And he's top 10 in the league. Like, he's ahead of Brady. I feel like if you have a Brady fan, you probably already have your Brady jersey. But he's still top 10 every year. But Kenny Pickett was, I think, the top-selling rookie jersey. Steeler fans are all in. And he did lead 2 drives, including the game-winning touchdown at the end, which sent people into a fever, whatever you want to call it, yeah.
No, I'm impressed. I was impressed with it.
Yeah. And like I said, I feel like, if you're going to do this soft rebuild that the Steelers are doing, where you're going to have a championship defense, you're going to have a lot of money tied up in, and you still got guys like Cam Hayward and Watt and Fitzpatrick, and you have all this money tied up on those guys, and you've got the weapons on offense with Najee and, Claypool and Johnson and Pickett and Austin and Gunner, and Freiermuth. And you got to see what he is. And you got to see now. Because if he's not, you've got a team that needs to turn it around quick,
Yeah, for sure.
And again, as I pointed out in the chat when I was arguing with somebody, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, Ben Roethlisberger eventually halfway through the season. I know he was a little bit different, but he was also a 21-year-old, very raw rookie. Troy Aikman, Brad. You look at all the people that won the Super Bowl. The majority of them just started right out of the gate.
Yep.
And the guys that sat, Mahomes and Ben are 2 guys that sat that were both incredibly raw when they came out. They were both 21 years old, and they were raw tools guys. They weren't guys that were known to be NFL ready. And then the other guy that's famously sat was, Steve Young behind Joe Montana and Aaron Rodgers behind Brett Favre.
He was sick because he only sat 1 game.
Yeah.
Match got hurt.
Exactly. And then, the other 2, obviously Steve Young was behind arguably the greatest quarterback in NFL history, depending on, after Brady, depending on what you think.
Yeah, I think it worked for him, and I think it worked for Mahomes. But Kenny Pickett's not sitting behind a guy like that.
No.
So you might as well play him. I agree.
But we love your kid. We have a new Oklahoma State guy to root for, which should make you happy, right?
Jalen Warren looks outstanding.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's like 5'8", and he's probably like 195 or 200. But I hope to God he makes it, because he plays hard, and I think he deserves a shot. So I hope he makes it. But I'm also totally jacked about the fact that the Steelers probably got the best wideout in the draft.
Oh yeah, Pickens looks awesome.
Unbelievable.
He's making spectacular plays in practice, which I know is practice. I've heard Iverson a million times. You don't need the meme, but he shows out in the game, and he's trash talking Fitzpatrick and other veterans in camp, which you could say is good or bad, but he's doing it because he's making plays over them all day long.
The only thing negative I'm going to say about him is he reminds me of Plaxico Burress. That's the only negative on him. I wasn't a big Plaxico fan.
Okay.
But he looks more consistent than Plaxico.
Very much so. And like I said, he's got as much attitude as anybody since Antonio Brown, but in a good way.
Yeah, he's got a lot of attitude, but I mean, he's really athletic.
Yeah. And like I said, when you have Deontay Johnson and Claypool, who are still young, and they've been really good, not great, but really good. Calvin Austin looks good. The gunner, I don't know what his last name is. It's very difficult to pronounce, but Gunnar Olszewski, the former All-Pro return man from New England, who looks like every New England wide receiver ever, which is surprising they let him leave. But he's been really good as a receiver. And then you add guys like Sims. They're deep at receiver. Yeah, Boykin. They're once again deep at receiver, and they're the Steelers, so it's not surprising, but it's exciting. And then the tight end.
You can make a lot of people happy on cut down day. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Like no receiver. If you're looking for a receiver.
Oh, I think so. And then on defense.
So we didn't overly rave, right?
No, we got to get one more out. Mark Robinson, Auburn, played running back for 3 years, and then converted to linebacker. And he was running around wrecking people yesterday.
Yeah.
And he looks like maybe a little hidden gem that if he can hopefully contribute enough to be the fourth middle linebacker, mainly riding the bench and then getting special teams reps, I think he could be something at some point.
He might be able to. I liked him too. It was another nice surprise.
And I guess since you said we're going to force people to listen, Arthur Mallett looked really good. And Trey Norwood. That's my last two.
Okay. All right. You got an entertainment?
I have two entertainments.
Okay, I've got one.
First, I watched The Black Phone, the Ethan Hawke sort of thriller horror movie.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's like sort of he does a good job of portraying it's worth watching. What's nice is it's on Peacock if you have Peacock. It's a thriller horror, but it's never that gruesome. So if you're not a scary person, you'll be able to handle it. It's a fun story, and I think it comes in at like 82 minutes. So there's no fluff. There's no wasted time. You're getting right into a story. And it's got two Justified actors in it too. So besides Ethan Hawke, who's outstanding as always. Ethan Hawke's always good.
Yeah, he's good.
And then on maybe the opposite end of movies, I watched Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And it was fantastic. The video game movies have gotten so good. And, being a lifelong video game fan, I've watched the beginning of video game movies in the 80s and 90s that were just absolute dog shit. And they've become really good now. And it's nice to see Jim Carrey, not that he's not a very talented person overall, but Jim Carrey playing a human cartoon is exactly the role Jim Carrey should always play. He's just incredible at it,
So, you kind of left yourself open here. So, what's the worst cartoon movie you've ever seen?
Oh, the worst video game movie? Outside of some of the animated editions, I do think, Street Fighter with Jean-Claude Van Damme is pretty terrible. And the original Bob Hoskins, John Leguizamo Super Mario Brothers movie is also awful.
Okay.
Like I said, I could throw in a couple of Final Fantasy animated movies that have come out over the last few years, but those are sort of low budget. I was trying to think of big movies that people have seen.
All right. Well, my entertainment moment is Elvis, and it's not something I paid $19.95 to rent it
Ooh.
on DirecTV
Okay.
or on Amazon Prime. So I paid for it, and I was pleasantly surprised. I heard really good things about it, but it's not like I'm an Elvis fan, or it's not like it was something that I was dying to see, right?
Right.
Artist was over here, so we were going to have a movie, and that's what we decided we would watch that, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Nice.
I mean, the guy that plays Elvis is outstanding. I mean, really, really good. Tom Hanks is great as Colonel Parker. And then they used video clips and blended voices in some of these things to really improve it, and I'm telling you, it was outstanding. And it was a good story. It was 2 hours and 38 minutes. And it had my attention the whole time. I heard the director's cut is 4 hours.
Oh, wow.
And I can't imagine adding anything to this. I mean, they touched on all the different things. And it was really, really good. The actors were good. The story was good. But I would recommend it.
Well, if they do the director's cut, I don't know if you saw, but you know, what was the Tarantino movie set in the West in the snow? When they released the director's cut on that on Netflix, they released it as a 4-episode show, which made it a very palatable 4 hours, I think.
Okay.
So maybe if they do
That
the
makes
director's cut
sense.
of Elvis, maybe that's what they need to do, is to cut it down into a couple of episodes and release it in those. And then my last entertainment moment is my hopeful one. I watched the first 2 episodes of Apple TV's Blackbird, which is
about.
It's supposedly based on a true story. I think it's also Ray Liotta's last performance. So,
Okay.
there's Ray Liotta's son Ray Liotta was a corrupt cop. His son gets in trouble, gets sent to prison, and his son is it's Taylor Egeron, who you've seen in probably lots of things. He played Elton John, as long as we're talking about people that played singers. He's outstanding as sort of like this very charming, very likable person.
Okay.
So the FBI needs to get a confession out of this child murderer. And they come to him and they say that if he's in there for 10 years. They come to him like he's only 6 months into his sentence, that if he can go and get a confession, that they'll commute his sentence. So he has to go and talk to this guy.
It's a believable thing.
It is a believable thing. Because it was a non-violent crime. He got caught as like a drug lord with a bunch of drugs and paraphernalia. So it wasn't like, they were asking another serial killer to let somebody out and then they were going to free him. But the guy that plays the killer, or presumed killer, I assume killer, is so good. He reminds me of like a character of Mindhunter. Like that's the level it seems like this guy studied, behavior and everything else. Just really, really good. And you don't actually meet him until almost episode 2. But like I said, it's 6 episodes. We're 2 episodes in. So I want to give it a hopeful that it'll be a recommendation.
Well, I'm going to start it this week, and I like the 6 episode arc. I like a lot.
Yeah.
6, 8. I'm good with 8.
Oh, and if you needed any more selling on your part, and I assume some of our audience might as well, it's written by Dennis Lehane.
Dennis Lehane, I love Dennis Lehane, so that's why I knew I was going to watch it.
I was like, if you needed another what did this guy? Well, look up Dennis Lehane and look at the kind of stuff he's written, and you'll be like, oh, that's probably going to be pretty good. So
yeah, it'd be good. I did finish the first 4 years of Stranger Things.
Okay.
And I'm surprised I liked it, but I liked it. So it's not something I would normally think I would like, but I liked it.
I think at the very least,
I thought 1 and 4 were my 2 favorite years.
Yes, I agreed 100%. I think that's the general consensus. Like 1 was like a really cool, like nostalgic homage to the 80s and John Carpenter and, the Goonies and all these sorts of movies that I think, if you're experiencing them as an older person looking back, they're fun. And if you're a newer person, it's a formula that just always works.
Yeah.
And then season 4 felt like they were back on track, and it's like now we know where we're going with the story again. And not that season 2 and 3 are bad; they're still enjoyable. But yeah,
they're still enjoyable. But I enjoyed it. I could, and I'll watch season 5 when it comes out. So
yeah,
but it got me in. So you got a food moment?
Somewhat. On Friday, because this was my birthday weekend, Z's Pizza, Zee, which I've mentioned before. It used to be the place that you had to follow on Instagram. Place your order on a Tuesday.
Pick up your pizza.
Yeah, you placed your order on a Tuesday, and they would tell you what time you could pick it up on Saturday, which made it somewhat difficult because you're kind of trying to plan your weekend on Wednesday when they're like, yeah, you can pick your pizza up at 2:42. They opened up their own shop, and we went in and got a pie. Because it was my first time meeting them, I wanted to make sure we ate it at the store because, it's a different experience.
Yeah, totally different experience.
And it was outstanding. I think it might be my favorite New Orleans pizza. So I'll just leave it at that.
And what did you get? What kind of pie?
Half cheese, half pepperoni. I went with the classic Jason,
Okay.
But they have a very, I would suppose it's probably closest to New York style pizza. I think what separates them from Pizza Delicious, which is also very good, and a couple of the others, is they have a very simple San Marzano tomato sauce that it's not trying to do too much.
Okay.
And their pepperoni is unique. Like, it does the curl, right, which we love.
Yeah.
But it's like thin curl as opposed to some of the thicker curls that we've seen typically.
Oh, okay.
And it looks like, and I don't really know this area very well, but it's on Baronne Street for any New Orleans people that listen to us. And there's a new ice cream shop going in, and it looks like a really nice area where there's a bunch of shops that are empty right now. So it looks like it might be like another up-and-coming little area.
And where is Baronne Street in New Orleans?
It's in New Orleans.
Is it its own neighborhood, or where is it?
I know you're driving. I think we drove on St. Charles and then turned off of St. Charles.
Okay.
So
you're going like away from downtown.
Oh yeah, it's definitely it's away from down. It's
okay.
And we went at
I've gone a couple places. I've gone some of my favorite places are out that way.
Yeah.
Like Camellia Grill and Brixton's are both out that way. And those are two of my favorite places.
And I can't guarantee this. I mean, there's obviously a lot of neighborhood stuff around there too where you can eventually park. But we went at 4:30 on a Friday, and parking was great. So if you want to get there now before all those other shops fill up, you probably get good parking too. So
cool.
Yeah.
Well, here's my food moment. I cooked it.
Okay.
So I bought some carne asada at
Snake River?
Sprouts.
Oh, okay.
And I grilled it and made fajitas, and they were outstanding. And they were as good as any fajita I've had anywhere, including Blanco and Phoenix. So I'm pretty pumped on my ability now to make great fajitas. And I made carne asada and polo asada. And
what did you make your marinade or your seasoning with?
Sprouts already has it marinated.
Oh, okay.
So it's ready to go, and just grill it.
And because we talked about it once on this podcast, and it's the only reference point I have, and maybe other people have listened to us, you've sent me the Snake River carne asada. How did it compare to that one?
The Snake River would have been better, just because the quality of meat is better.
Right,
but this was still really good.
Okay.
The Snake River is the best ever.
It is pricey though.
From me making it from scratch and making everything else with it,
yeah,
was pretty outstanding. But Snake River meat, if they still made their carne asada, it's the best.
But it is pricey, and I assume Sprouts was a much more economical solution.
Yeah, Sprouts was like I think it was $12 a pound.
Okay, that's not bad at all.
No, and the chicken was like $7 a pound.
Okay. Well, I think we probably rambled on enough today, right?
All right, well, where are we next week? What divisions we going to do next week?
I think we just continue to move across. So, I guess let's go south. Right?
Okay.
I don't know if that's exactly. I was like, we'll go south, east, and we'll end in the north because we like ending in the north.
Okay. And listen, I'm asking for some help here. I asked Jason this question beforehand. If I was picking a fantasy quarterback between Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes, and all three were available when I picked in my fantasy draft, which one would you take? And I would love to hear from you. Email me, respond on Twitter. I'll probably ask the question on Twitter as well. But I want to see that. I want some help.
Yeah. We've sort of said we think, those are our three. And I guess the dark horse, because it is fantasy football and running is a lot, would be maybe Lamar Jackson. But he's a big risk, I think, this year, especially with the contract situation.
Yeah, he doesn't throw enough touchdowns for me.
Yeah. All right.
All right, everybody. Well, have a great week. I hope you enjoyed the show.